Hi, welcome to Watcher DM. I'm Gabriel. Today I'm going to do a flip-through review of the Mothership sci-fi horror RPG Player's Survival Guide by Tuesday Night Games. The book was created by Sean McCoy and edited by Jarrett Crater. Developed by Luke Gearing, Fiona Maeve Geist, Tyler Kimball, Nick Reed, Don Stroud, and Sam Wildman. Illustrated by Ryan Barry, Jan Birge, Abe Serda, Jota Cravo, Daniel Francisco, David Hoskins, Patrick Loveland, Sean McCoy, and Zach Hazard Vappen. There's a bunch of other credits here I won't go into, but special thanks to Alan Girding. I know there's just a ton of love and effort went into this book. Before I dive in, I would like to ask you to hit the like button on this video if you like flip through reviews where I cover it all. There will also be spoilers if you want to find out stuff about this game on your own. You may want to skip this video. And likewise, if you want to see videos like these, I do a weekly flip through and review of games I personally have played or run. And so it comes with the anecdotal perspective of somebody who's actually touched the material to a table and thrown dice at it. If you subscribe, you should hit the bell icon so that you're notified, although my schedule is very consistent. I do tutorials on Sunday, and I do flip through reviews on Tuesday, and I've been throwing some shorts up lately of some of my other stuff that I do. Last, I would like to ask you to please support the channel by joining the Patreon, where you can get exclusive access to some of the cool things that we're making over here at Watcher DM, or you can go to watcherdm.com and purchase any of the games and adventure modules that we've made in the last 5 years. All right, let's go do a Mothership. So, if you haven't heard about Mothership, the game, then I'm surprised and also honored that I get to be the one to tell you that this game is, well, first, it is my first real foray into horror RPGs. I had never, in fact, I am not a horror genre guy. I don't really like horror films. I tend to be a little fluffy as a person. So I'm not usually, grimdark bounces right off of me. Most horror stuff that's gory, I'm just kind of like, it's gratuitous. Mothership, though, does something very unique. So let's talk about the book's construction. This is a staple-bound zine. I think it's, understated a bit. Just how simple and kind of elegant it is. I think it weighs in at about 42, 44, maybe 44 pages all told. Maybe a little bit less. I look at it here. So this is so they're counting covers. And we end at 42 here, so 43, 44. Yeah, so 44 pages of the zine. It's a nice cardstock material. It isn't like a fancy laminate or anything. It's pretty much, not untreated, but it's pretty, it's a simple document in terms of its structure. But it is hardy. I hope you can tell. I have kind of abused this thing. I've used it a lot. On the inside covers, you've got usable tables, so weapons damage and armor. Some of the weapon concepts here are, I think, just really fundamentally amazing game design. Like the stun baton does 1d5 damage of blunt force, but its body save or be stunned for a round. So, there's just a lot, like microfilaments, body save or become entangled. So there's just a lot of little blips of kind of mechanical interest inserted into the game. On the back sheet, you've got the character sheet / character creation workflow. What's amazing about this document is that it literally walks you through each step of the character creation process with an explanation for that step. So to get a new player playing, you just hand them the character sheet. They are off to the races. They can read this and follow the instructions and do the thing. On the back, you've got the how to play Mothership. So very clear, very simple instructions for how the game is played. So you have a reference for how violence works, what all the different checks are that happen, how range works, all on one sheet. This is masterclass level layout and design, information design. We've got our content warning here, so it is worth noting that Mothership is not for the faint of heart, although I believe the system is flexible enough to support almost any kind of genre or play, and we'll maybe get into that a little bit later. So, it starts off with character creation, as it should. This is the player's survival guide, and again, very clear steps. It uses a picture of the character sheet with its tutorial style format, but already filled out as an example, and clear references on where to find different things in the document. It talks about credits and money. This talks about loadouts. So these loadout tables are fantastic. Rolling a d10 to find out that you're an android wearing a vac suit with a smart rifle and infrared goggles and a mylar blanket versus an android who walks in with some corporate attire and a VIP corporate card and nothing else sets a very different tone for the kind of character you're playing. And this kind of play to find out style, I think, works exceptionally well for this game. Trinkets and patches. So, again, one of those things where rolling on this table to find out who your character is by what they're carrying and what patch they have stitched onto their jumpsuit is just, how do I say this? It puts the character into the object in a way. So like, characters can be very difficult. They tend to be fairly one-dimensional in stories. And a one-dimensional character is, in stories, most of the time, perfectly serviceable. But many characters out there are not very even one-dimensional. You know, like a murder hobo is a murder hobo is a murder hobo. But a murder hobo with a flint hatchet or a BB gun or a titanium toothpick says something about the character that a player can latch onto and turn into a rich play experience without needing to overthink backstory, or it's a great prompt, I guess is what I mean. You can really quickly create a character scaffold out of these that can take you hours into understanding a character in seconds. And I think that this is all RPGs should emulate this at some level. I think it's genius design. You've got equipment. So this is all the kind of non-combat equipment, much like the design for the weapons. The equipment items here have fantastic mechanical tooth, and they're kind of all over the place. But yeah, I think they're really effective and well designed. Also, it has a section on pets here and carrying capacity. Although carrying capacity is a little brief here, it's kind of just saying, like, use common sense, which, you know, sounds great. Unfortunately, I think all of us know common sense is not amazingly common. But also, I think one of the design goals with this game is not to be a manage your slots game. This isn't an inventory management game with a story game wrapped on top of it, right? And because of that, they decided not to focus on equipment carrying capacity. You've got this amazing spread of firearms, so you can immediately get a visual kind of tone for what you are actually talking about. What's that thing in your hand, right? And this astounding art of all the different armor and suit options that are available to characters. Safety instructions. So, how to be a great player. This is wonderful. This really informs the player on their responsibility at the table, and also what they should expect, right? So, like, characters die in Mothership. That's what happens, and in real life. And I think that that's great to kind of just say, violence is punishing. Like, these are the things you should expect. You should also expect a safe play environment, and so they talk about, setting expectations and setting your expectations for what you should require from your play sessions. I think that's wonderful. This is the basics on how to play, what you're going to need. Again, extremely concise writing, very punchy, and amazing layout. It talks about stat checks and saves, modifying stat checks and saves, so how the actual dice mechanics work. It is a percentile roll under system that effectively, like, advantage, disadvantage, work like you would expect them to work. You roll double the dice and take the higher or lower, depending on if it's advantage or disadvantage. And you can add skills that are relevant if you have a skill. So trained skills are worth more than... I think it's trained skills. Let me see here. Let's see if we can figure it out. Skills. If a character has a skill that is relevant, you can add the skills bonus. And so skill bonuses, again, gives you the page. So you just go to 22, trained skills, expert skills, master skills. And you can see each of these skill categories has a different amount that you can add. Pretty straightforward. I will say, Mothership, the assumption is that you are only rolling for things when you are under stress or in a tense situation where the outcomes are not clear. And so you will only be rolling under circumstances where it is likely that you will fail. And so you find your stats are usually lower than 50% by usually a pretty good margin. And even being modified by your skills, they're still likely to be under 50% on a roll. So rolls, if you're rolling, you probably are losing, but it does encourage a very creative style of play, an immersive style of play, where you buy in to the setup of the world and you use every kind of narrative moment to try and, act like a terrified mortal human in this terrifying environment. And I think that it nails it. Anytime you fail a roll in this game, you accumulate stress. The critical success and critical failures mechanisms, I think, are also really wonderful. Double rolls on a D100 are pretty rare. But it works really well here that on a double, it's a crit. And if that roll was a failure, it's a crit failure. Like, it just really elegant design, again. What is your high score? So high score is the number of sessions your character has survived. These tend to stay pretty low, but I do love that they have that as a check-in piece. So it does talk about calling for a check here when that happens. So this is the stress mechanic. The stress mechanic is kind of the heart of the system. The characters start with a minimum stress of 2, and so they will start with 2 stress. As they progress through the game, they're going to accumulate stress. One of the things that I don't think, like, it is probably said here, but, like, it is one of the things that is the hardest to remember as an actual warden, is to just hand out stress when it's appropriate. Like, when that tense moment happens or the door, rattles, like, adding a little stress to the characters engages the mechanic in a way that players really feel. What's nice is that it's not like in a traditional RPG where you're taking damage all the time and your reduction in hit points is moving you closer to death. That's not what this game is doing. Instead, what it's doing is it's accumulating stress as you take actions and do things and kind of fail. And then at certain, kind of break points, you have to make a panic check. And if you roll under your stress on the panic table, like with your panic check, you look up on this table the value that you rolled. So if I had a 13 stress and I rolled a 12 on my panic check, I would become haunted. So it'd gain a new condition, haunted. Something starts visiting the character at night, in their dreams, out of the corners of their eyes, and soon it will start making demands. Amazing, right? Just, so good. So yeah, this is the mechanic that you're working against. This is really the thing, like your character going mad from stress is the thing in this game. Again, fantastic examples of play. This is the skills section. I'm not going to go over this too deeply. There is a pretty good, I think, array of skills. It is a lot up to DM adjudication, and I will say some of the more technical skills are going to be difficult to adjudicate. You should probably do a little bit of light reading on computers, AI, hacking, whatever, just to get some language features of some of those, and maybe a minor understanding of how some of them work if you don't feel comfortable with it, just so that you can make it more believable for players who might have that knowledge. Otherwise, you're fine. How to train skills. So it's funny that this takes a whole spread. It's also hilarious that this spread is like mostly art. You basically don't train skills, if I'm being honest, in this game. Most characters will not survive long enough to do this progression. But it is there, and you can do it. I intend to run a more full-featured campaign where I'm doing more of this, because I really want to test this stuff out. But as it stands right now, I have not used much of this. And nor have any of the wardens I've talked to. Turn orders, so violent encounters. This is a little bit interesting because it talks about things in a couple of terms. So it does, it tries to kind of establish a kind of initiative-based combat for violent encounters. So it kind of talks about that here. But I think largely the way that we end up playing this, at least at my table, is the monsters are going, the terrible thing is going to do something. What are you doing, player, to get past that, stop it, whatever? Like, what are your actions? And then what happens is if the players fail to do anything, then what the monster was going to do happens. So you don't really have to roll very much for monsters, and it tends to be a little bit less initiative and a little more fluid narrative sorting of events. It's nice it talks about what you can do as a player character, so it's just got some really clear instruction for what actions you can take. Attack, damage, and defense. So this is how the damage system works, and when you take a certain threshold, your hit points in damage, you will gain a wound. When you are wounded, you will roll on a wound table based on the type of damage that you took. And, these effects are pretty wild. They vary wildly, but they can be very intense. The death save is super cool. In fact, I think I saw the other day there's like a 3D printed like spaceman helmet for rolling your death save under, so like a liar's dice kind of thing, so that you can like keep it on the table with a little helmet, and then you like pop it off when somebody checks to find out what the state of the person is. So that's the pitch: is you're rolling the die in secret and then revealing it when somebody checks the body, which is just such a great sci-fi horror trope. These are your ranges. Again, nice spread, amazing art, good layout. Then we talk about survival. So atmosphere, bleeding, cryosickness, exhaustion, food and water, oxygen, radiation, stim pack overdose, and other drug overdoses, I might add, and temperature. This is nice to have on one spread, just like this is how the world is trying to kill you. Great. Medical care. So this talks about how your character can recover from wounds and hit point damage and mental damage or stress. With a bunch of options for medical treatment. And then we've got a nice example of play here. Spread. Ports. So this talks about spaceports and how you can do shore leave. I've used the shore leave rules a couple of times, and I like them. I think they hold up. which is great. Like, I think most people do not play Mothership much beyond like a session or two, short, one shots or whatever. And so I very specifically tried to make a longer game happen so that we could get into this, and it was fun. It was really interesting and engaging. So well done. Contractors. This is another section of the game that I have not really dived into too hard. I think I've had a contractor as a player, but I don't think I have ever had my players hire a contractor, and I intend to. So I will I will report back on how that goes. And then character sheet and how to play Mothership. This has been a flip-through review of the Mothership Sci-Fi Horror RPG Player's Survival Guide by Tuesday Night Games. I think I'm not the first person to say that this is absolutely a masterclass in design. This book is available, I believe, for free on DriveThruRPG as a PDF. But if you've got some hard-earned dollars and you want to spend it somewhere worthwhile, I think you could do no better than really supporting Tuesday Night Games and helping them support third-party creators. One of the most amazing things about Tuesday Night Games is their perpetual kind of support of their third-party community and the crafting of some amazing content from that venue. Thanks so much for watching. Again, if you like this video, I hope you will hit the like button, and I hope you will subscribe and hit the bell icon to be notified. Go check out watcherdm.com if you're interested in getting any of our books or adventures, or you can go to patreon.com/watcherdm, where you can find our custom offerings and early access to videos like these. Thanks for playing.